All right, everybody, welcome back in. I hope you're doing very well. We are going over Aidan Hutchinson, excellent defensive end from the University of Michigan, doing a draft report. This is going to be the shorter version. I'm actually going to do a very much longer and more in-depth version if you want to watch that. In this particular version, I'm just going to cover the grades and just do a kind of a quick, 8 to 10 minute analysis on Hutchinson's strengths and weaknesses. And then if you like what you see and you want more, you can roll over to the same place and get the longer version that'll have more in depth. We'll have more of the charts and the graphs and things like that. All right. So Aidan Hutchinson had a tremendous season for University of Michigan. Let's jump right in. He's got a tremendous first step. When you watch him on film, there are many times where his first step is so quick off the snap that he actually has his entire body across the line of scrimmage before anybody else along the defensive line has any more than their head across the line of scrimmage. It's a tremendously quick first step. Now, part of that, and I don't want to call it an elite first step, because part of that is a lot of the offensive tackles that you see trying to guard him actually take a step or two back in anticipation of him trying to get past them on one side or the other, and so it gives him more space to operate. But having said that, he's still got a tremendously quick first step. Along with that, he has very quick feet overall. He has very quick feet in short area. He knows how to move them. He's got good footwork. He does an excellent job of that, but the emphasis here is on his first step. His strength level, and this is going to be a little bit in the gray area, controversial area. When you watch his highlight film and you watch him knocking this guy on his rear end and you watch him pushing this guy into the quarterback, you get the opinion that this guy's incredibly strong and he's just pushing tackles around all over the place. Now, that's not exactly the case. When you watch his entire body of work over the course of the season, you realize that he's really not pushing these guys around all over the place. Having said that, he is very strong. His height weight is about 6'6", 265 pounds, so he's not a huge guy by NFL football terms, especially in terms of weight. Most of the guys he's going up against are in the 285 to 305 range, so he's a good bit less than they are in terms of body mass. His upper body strength is excellent. He's able to hold his own, but he's not exactly pushing these guys around all over the field. Usually when you see him knocking a guy over or pushing a guy back into the quarterback, usually it's a tackle who, for the most part of the game, has struggled to block Hutchinson on the edges, either the inside edge or the outside edge, and they're already kind of off balance anyway, and Hutchinson is then able to use his strength, which is very top-heavy, to drive them back into the quarterback. All right, so he does have above average strength. He's a strong player, but you have to consider body mass into that when you decide just how strong is he on a football field in terms of actually pushing players around, and he really doesn't do a lot of that. He can catch them at times off guard and off balance, but in general, you don't see him pushing a lot of guys around, and you certainly don't see it in the running game. His speed, this is again, when you watch the highlight film, the 10 to 15 minute highlight films on YouTube or Twitter or wherever you find them, he looks like an insanely fast player. And he is above average fast, all right? But I've got him in the CB category. This is something that we're going to cover a lot more of in the extended version of the video if you're curious. He is not elite speed, not by any stretch. Kayvon Thibodeau is a lot faster than Hutchinson is on almost every single play. Hutchinson just does not have elite speed around the edge. We'll talk about this in depth in a future video in the extended version, but just in general, he has good speed, above average speed for defensive ends, but he does not have elite speed. A lot of what you see on the highlight films are plays in which he has gotten a lot of momentum and he has good hand usage, good foot usage to get around players. And a lot of times he's going after quarterbacks who, quite honestly, are stationary quarterbacks. Okay, I think 2 out of the 12 quarterbacks he played this season were considered mobile or above average in speed. Everybody else tends to be spot quarterbacks, stationary guys, typical Big Ten kind of quarterbacks. In general, you don't see him chasing those guys down. You don't see him chasing down running backs. You don't see him chasing down anybody in the flat. We'll get to that in a second. So the speed thing, although he looks super fast on the highlight film, when you actually watch all the work throughout the year, he has above average speed. It's in the C to B category, but it's not elite speed by any stretch. Blockability, when you consider the strength and the speed, the blockability factor goes down. And again, this is where watching highlight videos is so much different than watching the regular videos. When you watch the highlight films, he looks unblockable. He looks like Superman. He looks like a video game character. And some of the plays that he makes are astounding. They are amazing. There's no question about it. But when you start to kick into the film, and these are some of the games that I've watched: Western Michigan, Washington, Rutgers, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa. When you look at the film of all the plays of all the entire season, you realize there's a lot of plays in which he does get blocked. There are a lot of plays in which he is a non-factor in getting to the quarterback at all. So he can be blocked. There's a certain way that some guys have had more success than other guys. We'll look at that on the in-depth video. His blockability, though, is at a B. He's a handful, no doubt about it. He's got the inside move, he's got an outside move, he's got a swim move, he's got the strength to push back if he's got you off balance. There's no question Hutchinson is a handful, but he's not unblockable. In fact, we've seen quite a few times this year where guys did have a consistent amount of success in blocking him for the most part. Now, they couldn't shut him down. I didn't find a game where anybody just shut him down for the entire game, but we did find a lot of plays on video where they were kind of able to hold him at bay for the most part. And again, that's something we'll cover more on the in-depth side of things. So the blockability I've got as a B. Against the run, he's actually just average against the run. Does he make plays against the run? Sometimes. Sometimes do teams opt to just run away from him? Yeah, sometimes. Can he set the edge? Yes, he can set the edge. He's good at doing that. But you don't see him just throwing tackles off and throwing tight ends off and making a lot of plays in the running game. That's just not something that you see a lot of. You do at times see him able to peel off of a block and make a play on the running back. But more often than not, it's kind of a standoff between the tackles trying to block him in the running game and his ability to shed that block and actually make a play. So he can set the edge. He's very good at that. He knows to do that. He's a very smart player, got high intellect. He knows how to do that. But in terms of actually peeling off of those blocks and making a play, it's not like he's dominating the running game and shutting it down. That's just not happening. So against the run, he's holding his own. He's good and solid against the run. He's not a liability. I think he's probably an asset, but you do not look for him in the NFL to be shutting down running backs and scaring teams from running the ball right at him. Do not expect to see that. Against the pass, I've got him graded as a D, and here's why. You'll actually see on the films, probably not the highlight videos, but you'll actually see on the films, you'll see him dropping back into zone coverage every once in a while. He is capable of doing that, but he's not actually guarding anybody. You just don't see that on any film, hardly any game this year. He just does not have the speed to do it. His footwork is good when getting to the quarterback, but he does not have the speed to guard tight ends or running backs, or certainly not any kind of receiver. That would just be impossible. So is he capable of dropping back into a zone? Yes, but that's it. All he's doing is just confusing the quarterback at that point. You're not going to see him guarding anybody, and that's okay. We don't necessarily expect defensive ends to be able to drop back and cover people. I totally understand that. That's not a knock on him, but if you're trying to figure out what all can he do on a football field, pass coverage is not one of those things, okay? So again, if the thought is maybe we can convert him more into a linebacker kind of a player, his pass coverage skills just aren't there. They just do not exist. And sorry, I'm going to take a drink while I'm finishing up the video. Stunting and twisting, same thing. You'll see him stunt and twist a good bit in college football, and I figure that'll continue in the NFL. But he usually never gets to the quarterback on a stunt or twist. It was very rare. Out of his 14 sacks, and he had a lot of sacks, it was very rare to see him ever get to the quarterback on a stunt or a twist. That is where he and another defensive lineman switch places, and instead of coming around the edge, he's actually coming up the middle. It was incredibly rare, and the reason for that is the speed factor. He just is not an overall fast, elite speed kind of a player. He's got good speed, above average speed, but typically, and this is just against college players, in the NFL, you're not going to see him get home to the quarterback an awful lot on a stunt or twist. That's not to say he can't do it. There are times when he will be able to do it, but in general, he's just not fast enough to come from the edge all the way through to the middle and get home to the quarterback in general on average. Defensive tackle, this is something that I actually think he can do. He is above average strong. He's good at fighting with his hands. One of his best moves is an inside move where he's able to slap people's hands away. His footwork is good. The only thing that might keep him and would keep him from doing much defensive tackle in the NFL is just his body mass. Again, he's more of a lean player, 6'6", 265. And again, if you find the different height or weight, by all means post it in the comments. But that's his general body type right there. In general, he's got all the tools to play defensive tackle, but he doesn't have the body mass. And I don't like recommending that players greatly change their weight because you start to get away from what they have been their whole career. But if he were going to move to defensive tackle, he would really need to add on about another 20 pounds, at least another 15 pounds, so he just has enough body mass, lower body mass, to get up against the offensive lineman there in the interior and to get a real push on the inside. So he's got the skills to play defensive tackle, there's no question about it, but he doesn't have the body mass. So that would have to be a choice that he and whatever NFL team drafts him, if they don't want him at defensive end, then I'm sure they're going to want him at defensive end. But again, just what all can he do on a football field? Defensive tackle, he's capable of that, but he's going to need more body mass, especially more lower body mass than what he's got. Last thing right here in the flat, some defensive ends are fast enough to get out to the flat and be a real problem when it comes to stopping screens, wide receiver screens or running back screens. They can also be a real problem for quarterbacks throwing the football out to a running back in the flat. They can also be a real problem when a quarterback is scrambling out into the flat. They can also be a real problem when the running back is running the ball into the flat. It was extremely rare. It was very rare to ever see Aidan Hutchinson make a play out there in the flat in any of these situations. Screens, throws, scrambles, runs, in any situation. There were a handful of plays where he actually got out there, but usually he wasn't actually the guy that was stopping anything. He's just not fast enough to get out there in the flat, and that's where you start to see the speed thing show up. So again, he's a heck of a player. He's a handful. He's a bit of a headache. He's got a lot of good things, but the speed and the strength, when you consider the body mass, the speed and the strength are not elite. They're somewhere back down in the above average category. And for that reason, I would hesitate really to draft him in the top 3 or the top 5 or even the top 10. I just don't think you're getting athleticism that is unattainable by other players in the same areas, okay? So anybody who gets him is going to be happy to have him. He's a heck of a football player. He is a tremendous asset to any football team. But would I necessarily draft him in the top 3, top 5, even top 10? I would have my reservations. I would hesitate on that. It would be something that I would have to stop and think about a good bit. All right, these are the grades. This video has already gone longer than I intended it to. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch the extended version, we'll go over a lot of these things in more detail, and you can find out more about that. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.